goalkeepers, male and female. We also have some club goalkeepers and goalkeeper coaches and a few budding enthusiast goalkeepers.
All right.
So Shaka, what I'd like to do, I'm going to open up with the first question. Can you talk us through a little bit of your journey from being a kid, starting off not maybe liking goalkeeping, and to where it has taken you? Can you give us a little chronology of your journey?
Well, I mean, it's quite a journey, so I'm not sure. A little chronology is the right phrase, but I'll try to sum it up as best I can. I started playing football in Trinidad and Tobago way back as far as I can remember. First broke into the national setup at age 10. We were putting together a national under-12 team to play against Venezuela. From there, just kind of played with all the junior national teams growing up through under-14s, under-16s, under-19s before going to university in the States. I don't know if you could see my T-shirt. Howard University is where I went to college after doing both my O's and A levels at CIC. Went to Howard University, played there for 4 years. After Howard University, went to England on a trial at Reading, who were at the time in the Reading were in what was the second division, so what is now League One, and from there was a 15-year professional career. Ended with FC Dallas in Major League Soccer, and now with ESPN. So that is as brief and as it can be, and I understand that I skirted over quite a lot. So if there's any aspect of that you want me to get into more detail about, I'll happily do that.
Yes, that was please Shaka, please expound a little more on any part of the journey that you think is going to be helpful for coaches and for national youth goalkeeper. Please do.
Well, I mean, you take each step for what it's worth, and I'm not in a position to say which step would resonate or make the most sense for any individuals in the crowd. But suffice to say, I came through playing with a lot of the junior national teams. Somehow, after under 14, I would always find myself as being kind of the youngest in the group, and which is a little bit testing. You're growing up, you're a teenager, a young teenager, going through all the things that teenagers did back then and still have to go through now. And I'm a couple of years younger than everybody else, so a lot of the conversations I didn't feel a part of. So it was a tough time for me, kind of coming through some of those junior national teams. But at the same time, I was playing for CIC. I would play, I represented CIC throughout my time there at under 14s. When I was still under 14, I was the starting goalkeeper for the under 6. So I kind of progressed through CIC in that by the time I was in Form 3, I was playing as the starting goalkeeper for the under 16s, but centre back for the under 14s. And then when I was in Form 5, I was or maybe Form 4, I can't remember what year it was. I was the starting goalkeeper for the first 11s, but I was a centre back for the under 16s. And then, as I mentioned, actually never played out for the first 11 for CIC, but did play out for a couple of games for Howard University, or came out the goal and went on the pitch. So always kind of harbored these dreams of being an outfield player, but the truth is I knew where everybody else wanted me. I knew where I wanted to be, but I knew where everybody else wanted me to be. So kind of was able to balance those two, and enjoyed every minute of it. At times, when I was struggling with the national team and struggling to fit in, CIC was my savior in many regards, and then I say that to make the point that quite a few years later, when you're kind of going through the seesaw of a professional career, the national team was my safe haven. Was what I looked forward to most, and what kept me in love with the game for all those years.
Shaki, you talked a little bit about some of the trials, the tough times you've had with the national team. Can you expound a little more? Because I'm sure some of the goalkeepers could identify with that. Can you expound a little more?
Yeah. Well, first of all, probably the I'm not going to say the toughest of times, but it started when I first signed for Reading. And I say this all the time. I mean, if I didn't sign a 2-year contract when I first went to Reading, I probably would have called it a day after a year. So I left the US. Where my family. I had a brother who was at Howard with me. My then girlfriend and now my wife was at Howard with me, and I made a life for myself there, and decided to was offered this trial and wanted to give football in England a go. So went out there not knowing anyone, new country, new culture, not in touch with anyone. It's not like today where we had cell phones and it was easy to keep in touch as it is now. And it was tough. I struggled. Added to that just kind of the whole football mentality was far different than I'd been used to. When you're playing professional, you have to be prepared to go 100% all day, every day. And it's not what I'd been used to. Maybe because I was more talented than the others and at college level, maybe just because culturally it's different when you're either an amateur as I was in Trinidad or going to university. But at professional level, you have to go 100% all day, every single day, and there's simply no let up. I struggled with injuries. I struggled to set in, to settle in socially, and it was tough. But I remember coming home the summer after my first year as a pro, since I'd been 93, talking to my dad about telling him about my troubles and my struggles, and he was just like, "Listen, the one thing we do is we honor our contracts. You signed a 2-year contract. You go back, you see it out. If at the end of this coming year, you still feel the same, well then pack in, and you can either go back to school and do a master's, which I had options to do, or you figure out what comes next. I already had my Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering, so I could have gone to that. I went back up to England. Just about as soon as I got there, the manager, Mark McGee, called me into his office. They decided to sell their starting goalkeeper. They had a bid for him, a guy called Steve Francis from Hartlepool that they couldn't turn down, and they just didn't have any money to bring anybody else in. So as a result, by default, I was their starting goalkeeper. As it turns out, I was the only goalkeeper on Reading's books. I played every game that season, and we got promoted into the first division, what is now the championship. I also had the next point of real difficulty for me came probably around the end of my first year with Newcastle, and we just blown a healthy lead. We finished second, as much as we finished second in the league. We blew a healthy lead, and a lot of the players were under a lot of pressure. As a goalkeeper, it kind of comes with the territory, and things changed for me. My wife and I just had our first daughter. She was less than a year old, and she fell sick. She contracted gastroenteritis and had to be hospitalized for a few days. And that, for me, was a turning point in terms of my struggles, because I was going straight from the training ground, all the games, to hospital, to sit in a hospital room with my wife and daughter. And that's when it hits you. That's when you realize what's important. And after that, I was able to deal with the professional struggles a whole lot better, because I never lost sight of what was important, and that was family. And once you kind of recognize that, everything else just falls into space.
I think Shaka, thank you for being so open with us. When we look at goalkeepers and players playing in the Premiership, people always think that everything is hunky dory and it's all nice and you're just signing autographs and making big paychecks. But it's great to hear you talk about some of your struggles. And just want to go back to something you said in terms of when you became the first team goalkeeper at Reading. What did that do for your confidence, and how important is confidence?
It eventually did good for my confidence. Like I say, the manager was he was very open about it. They just didn't have money to sign anybody else. So hence here I am. And at that point, it's sink or swim. You get thrown into the deep end. In my first season, I'd only played probably about a dozen games, and at times I was good, at times I struggled, and I just realized, this is what it's all about, and I probably went into that season thinking as well that if it doesn't work out, so be it. I was having second thoughts about coming back just to start with, but I decided to give it a go, and I was going to give it a right go. I wasn't going to half step. So I played every game, through great form, through bad form, through injuries. I would just get myself out there and never shake the challenge. And with each game, and I think it also helped that the team started really well. We ended up winning the second division, as I mentioned, League One, and we were playing well. And that does the world of confidence when you feel that you're an integral part of a team that's successful, and that helped no end. And I think as the season went on, not only did the manager begin to show more and more confidence in me, but as I started to play better, I remember him saying to me, so we used to do this thing, he wanted me to come for crosses. And he called me and he said, Shaka, I want you to come for every cross that comes in, come for it. It's like, if they score, I'll take responsibility. I'm going to tell everybody that I'm telling you to come for every single cross. And when a manager puts that kind of belief in you, that allows you to make mistakes and allows you to grow into the position, it does the world of good for the goalkeeper in question, as it did for me at the time.
So I'm thinking also, Shaka, that your teammates will have also played a very huge part into bringing you along, because as a goalkeeper, just talk us through, Shaka, a little bit of, sometimes you let one in and you know for a fact that, hey, maybe I could have gotten that if I'd done something a little bit differently. But how were you able to bounce back in that same game right away? How were you to forget about it? Was it selective amnesia? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that comes as part of the territory that you know. And here's the challenge with goalkeepers, and a necessary part of the mindset is that people remember your film mistakes, and so it becomes. So what you find is when you're talking about the game, you talk to your goalkeeper coaches, you talk to other goalkeepers, because everybody else, and the head coach included, remembers your film mistakes. You could make 99 saves, great saves, and you make that one mistake, and that's the one thing that people are going to remember. But when you talk to other goalkeepers about that exact same game, they talk about the 99 saves. And so you find yourself, you surround yourself with people who understand that. And when you're talking about your game, that's what you talk about, or that's who you talk to. And generally, you don't, as much as you have to have conversations with your head coach, or you have to have conversations with, on the block or whatever it is, those things become less and less significant the more you recognize what's important to your game and your own improvement.